In honor of the Leewat Tool, the Village of Permanent acknowledges that we are meeting within the unceded territory of the Leewat Nation. For those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Can I get a motion to go on camera, please? Councillor Noble, second by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries.
So
Okay, I'm going to reopen the regular council meeting. Adopting the agenda, we haven't done that yet. Let's approve the agenda.
could we make one amendment, please, to move the
right.
develop our operations report up before the office of the CAO?
Okay, agenda moved as amended. Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Advisory report, we don't have any. Approval of the minutes from Tuesday, October 4th, moved by Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising? Seeing none, we have no business from committee of the whole or committees. So we'll go back to delegations.
Oh, sorry, the Zoom meeting, if I can just have everybody hold, the Zoom meeting is still locked. Elena, nobody can get in.
No, I unlocked it.
Zoom meeting still locked, looks like you are out of closed.
It's been unlocked and there's.
Okay, now we can get in. Okay, thank you, sorry. So now we have to bring in, can you bring in Jennifer? Yes, please.
Welcome back. Okay, so we are ready for your report when you are, Ms. Ville.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so let me just get, do you want me to share my screen again?
Sure.
Up to you. Now that I've got it down, hey?
Yeah.
Is that okay on your end?
Perfect, thank you.
Wonderful, okay. So the December 31st, 2021 financial statements. This is a clean or unmodified report as it was in last year and in years past. This auditor's report is M&P's, however, the financial statements are management's. The opinion paragraph at the top is the most important paragraph, providing our opinion that the financial statements are fairly presented. Our audit was carried out in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and final materiality used to assess the significance of misstatements or omissions identified during the audit was set at $420,000. Total unadjusted differences identified totaled to a nominal $27,796. We do confirm to Mayor and Council that M&P is independent of the village. So I'll scroll down to the first set of the financial statements. Here we are. So the statement of financial position shows the assets, liabilities, and surplus of the village at 2 points in time, December 31st, 2021 and 2020. The highlights from this statement are, in the first section, it shows the village's financial assets. Up at the top here, cash and cash equivalents increased 3 million to just under 11.8 million in 2021. A summary of cash transactions for the year can be seen on page 4, the statement of cash flows. Operating activities of the village brought in a net surplus cash of 6 million, which was used to acquire capital assets of 2.3 million and pay down debt of 64K, which is how we get to the increase of just over 3 million. Accounts receivable decreased by 711K in 2021, sitting at just over 1.6 million at year end. This is mainly timing differences on receipts of amounts owed to the village at this one particular point in time. The next section Oh, I should mention while we're up here, this investment in government business partnerships, this is the Spelcompton Community Forest Limited Partnership. And we received the audited information for these numbers late after the agenda packages went out. So your versions will show slightly different. Yours will say 257K, whereas the number is actually 245K, and that will be in the approved financial statements. Just a small update, but we felt it was important to reduce the number to show the true investment. So the next section, it discloses the financial liabilities. Deferred revenue saw an increase in 2021 of 1.5 million. This is a result of deferred capital contributions collected of 519K relating to large developments, and an increase in unexpended other grants of 1 million, which is mainly from a one-time grant relating to the Bike Skills Park. Deposits and permits also saw an increase in 2021 of 505K. This is mainly due to an increase of 490K in development bonds relating to significant developments ongoing in the village. Finally, long-term debt saw a decrease of 175K from 2020 due to repayments, net of advances, which were offset by new capital loans. Non-financial assets make up the next section of the statement. Prepaid expenses decreased by 77K in 2021. This relates to timing of wage expenses being withdrawn from the bank at year end. Tangible capital assets saw a net increase of 1.1 million during the year. This is made up of 2.3 million in additions, offset by the amortization taken on it of 1.1 million. Of these additions, we had building improvements of public works buildings for 43K. Engineering structures, there was significant addition of 1.5 million for soccer field 2. Machine and equipment had an addition of 396K. This is comprised of fire, having self-contained breathing tanks of 7K, gas detection equipment of 7K, a washer dryer of 13K, and bunker gear purchase of 12K. In public works, there was a Doosan loader of 184K, a Kubota excavator of 97K, and 32K for dog park fencing. Recreation had no additions. Water had additions of 309K relating to a well house pump and generator of 223K, as well as a water truck of 82K. Sewer had additions of 38K relating to SCADA system improvements for 6K, 11K relating to the outfall repair, 11K for surge suppressor and compressor, and 5K for control panel repair and replacement. And work in progress transfers to the engineering structures of 28K relating to the Bike Skills Park, and addition of 9K for fire training ground fencing. So the final section on this statement is the accumulated surplus for the village. This balance saw an increase of 2.9 million during the year. And you can think of this as balance as the net worth or equity of the village. The accumulated surplus was comprised of the following: unrestricted surplus of 443K, investment in government business partnership of 245K. This is the Community Forest Limited Partnership. There was a surplus in tangible capital assets of 27.7 million, which is your tangible capital asset balance less the debt owing on those assets, and reserves of 5.5 million. So what are some things that can be looked at this statement to determine the financial health of the village? You can look how leveraged the village is. This has been consistent since 2009 and consistent with a few other municipalities that we look at. So a summary over the past 5 years, this ratio has been generally around 34 to 37%, with being 34.8% in 2021. It was a small increase of 0.8% from the prior year due to the increase in deferred revenue and deposits. So if we go down to the statement of operations.
So maybe I'll just ask my question now instead of the end on that one. That level of leverage, 34, 35%, that's fairly standard for what you call a healthy financial community.
It is consistent with what we're seeing with communities of a similar size, yes.
Thank you.
So moving on to the statement of operations then, this shows what happened during the year, as well as budgeted amounts for 2021. Total revenue increased in 2021 by 3.2 million. This is mainly due to the provincial government transfers received in 2021 relating to the Bike Skills Park. Total expenses increased in 2021 by 1.5 million. Many categories were consistent with 2020, with the increase on each line due to increases in salaries of 435K across all the lines. This was fire of 238K, development and planning of 151K, public works of 206K, recreation of 50K, and water of 28K. And during 2021, general government expense increased 971K, mainly due to the transit operating contract. So bottom line surplus for 2021, right here at 2.94 million, up from the surplus of 1.25 million in 2020. And the surplus was budgeted for 4.4 million, which planned to allow for tangible capital assets expenditures of 7.5 million, whereas we saw 3.2 million in action. And if there are any questions, otherwise I'll turn it back to you.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Dillon.
You're very welcome.
If there are no questions, I'll look for a motion to receive, please. Suzanne, second by Councilor Noble. Any discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're on 12.1, Office of this. Y'all know we're going to move
Operations.
operation back. Mr. Chima, please join us. 12.5, which is operations third quarter report up to.
Thank you. Thank you for accommodating. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. Good morning. I'm here to present the third quarter report for Operations Department. Just a reminder, that's from July till September. So this period was quite busy. Obviously, it's our biggest construction season with ideal weather, although July was still a little bit wet and rainy, but the big project, which we heard in the financial reports there, the Mountain Bike Skills Park, we had our grand opening for the Bike Skills Park on July 16th. Well-attended event, celebrating the hard work of staff and contractors. And I just wanted to take that moment to especially thank my staff, because everyone really pitched in towards the end there. Still a few deficiencies to be corrected at that park, but we got everything ready for the public opening, and we're really pleased with the result. Also, another project I just want to mention off the top was during the fish window in August, we completed the final piece of the 1 Mile Lake inlet channel works that had been delayed. Well, initially identified in 2020 when we did most of the channel works, that there was a culvert that needed replacing. Unfortunately, due to supply chain issues, we didn't get that culvert in time for the 2021 fish window, so we finally completed it in the 2022 fish window. And I think the result was immediately visible. We're really pleased with the result there, and the color of the lake and the temperature was quite clear, and we're happy with what we're seeing there. Still dealing with beaver dams. In fact, tomorrow we're taking another one out, assuming we get the final approval. But yeah, it's going to be an ongoing management project, but still the work that was done definitely makes it a lot easier to manage as well. There's a long list of other projects I'll kind of just fly through. Feel free to stop me if you have more detail or questions. So also completed in the third quarter, our regular operation and inspection of all the sanitary lift stations, wastewater treatment plant, water conditioning plant, well house and pumping stations, as well as all the development that's going on. Our department reviews the engineering on the new phases of of those developments. Residential water and sanitary service line inspections. Been doing a lot more of those, teaming up with the building department, but we just feel that we're the ones that are going to be dealing with the issues if there is like a water connection that's not done properly. So our team inspects those, help out the building department there. Public Works also mentioned the financial statement there. We did the roof replacement on the Public Works shop, and also we had a gravel shed that collapsed during the big snow last winter, so we fixed that up and improved it actually. Ongoing SCADA controls improvements throughout the village. Fernwood water main project, I might have mentioned that in the project table as well, but just some ongoing investigation preparations for that. We've also been doing some improvements to our GIS system, which goes into the asset management inventory review. Replace some water reservoir mixers, chlorine injection pump. Been having issues there that I think we're finally in a good place. Soda ash tank agitator motor replacement. Again, I won't go into the details of some of these, but just sort of to list how many things have been going on. Signage upgrades throughout town, residential water meter installations, subdivision development control bylaw update. We're working on that right now with the development department, as well as the development cost charges bylaw update. In parks, we've got our ongoing garbage collection, public receptacles, cleaning of public toilets, etc. The spring parks cleanup. Spring, believe it or not, July was kind of like spring. Grass mowing and trimming, ongoing regular park stuff. We've been doing a lot of work out at Dendorf Park in preparation for the stormwater management pond, and I think I've presented to council about a grant opportunity around irrigation, using that pond for irrigation. And so we've been doing some pump testing out there to see, the recharge rate of the pond and so forth. So we're hoping we can get that grant so that next summer we can water using that water rather than the city water. Lot 13, that's the agricultural park and park and ride. So we've just been doing the preliminary geotechnical and environmental assessments, investigations out there, as well as the early design meetings. We've been just at the tail end of this quarter, we started the brush clearing at Patty's Park, which is just at the end of Alder Drive. It's just a small little park area that's kind of been let go wild, but we've had some requests from residents like, can you do something about it? We're just basically cleaning it up and hopefully make a space that the residents there can enjoy. Nothing major, but just a clear and safe place. Skateboard park had some shed repairs on the roof of the shed there. Site grading at 1 Mile Lake Dragon Boat area. This is just another minor thing. We just used some excess material we had from the playground installation, kind of created a little bit more beach area. So we're hoping to seed that and just have, and we move the boat so that more people can put their towels down and lie down in the summer days. And we also painted and pressure washed the 1 Mile Lake outhouse. So it's looking really sharp as far as outhouses go. So those are the minor projects. I've also included a major project list, and this is something that I've added to the quarterly reports. I think last quarter was the first time, just to provide updates. Some of them there won't be updates, but I've kept them on the list just so that you can know the status. So very pleased to say that soccer field number 2, at least the phase of the soccer field, is complete. We got the last thing that we were waiting on was the BC Hydro energization of the field lighting. So the lights are online, and as far as I know, I haven't heard anything. That's now Recreation that's managing it, but I haven't heard of any major issues. So I assume no news is good news. Next step to that is the amenity building and parking lot, which we're still in the preliminary stages with. One of the holdups is the water and sanitary servicing that we have to deal with. So we're just waiting on that design before we go out with the RFP for the building construction. Also, I think as noted before, the daycare project took precedence. So we've got the same consultant working on both of those projects. So once we close the RFP on that, I think we're going to be going ahead with the RFP for the amenity building. I mentioned on here also, we applied for that grant just because the irrigation piece sort of goes in with that project. Mountain Bike Skills Park I mentioned was completed. There are still a few deficiencies to correct, but overall the project is complete. We're very pleased with that.
I just jump in and ask a question.
Please.
Was there ever any shade area going to be provided? Like I wouldn't call it a shed, but a sitting area you can get out of the sun type of thing?
Yes, so that was something that was discussed with Porca. And I believe they're still working on it. They received a grant from Whistler Blackland Foundation. And I believe that they were hoping to use that money. That was something that we talked about. We didn't have budget for in the project, but we sort of designated an area for it. So I understand they're also looking to local builders and trying to, the community to help get that through. But we did include that in our, we're just working on finalizing the memo of understanding around the use and the maintenance of the park. Being that Porca will maintain the jumps and trails, and we would do all the grass trimming and stuff like that. And so I think we included a provision for that shed or shade structure. Not sure what they're going to end up going with. I know we talked about one of those sails that can down the winter, or sort of a gazebo style thing, but there is a designated space for it. So I don't know what they're finally going to do, but that is something that I think is imminent.
Good, that's good to hear, because at 35 degrees and parents are out there with little kids, there's no place to go.
Yeah, well, we planted quite a few trees as well, and obviously they're young trees, but the goal would be, and those are strategically placed for shade as well. So, but that's an issue out in that area in general.
Thank you.
Shall I continue? Permanent Farm Road East upgrade. There's been extensive planning work on this. This is around the resurfacing of the road, but also the addition of the trail. Council may remember that we discussed going ahead with some of that work in the event that the developer was going to resurface this year. It's not looking likely that they will. So that's why the trail hasn't commenced. The trail work hasn't commenced yet. But that's as much as I'd like to get this done this year. It gives us more time to possibly get that grant and then go ahead with that funding. So obviously we wanted to be ready to do the work in conjunction with the work that the developer was doing. But if they're not going ahead with that this year, then we weren't. But still a few details to work out there. But yeah, that's just been extensive work during that third quarter. Water treatment investigation. There's no update on this. This was council. Remember, we applied for a grant for that, and so we're still awaiting the grant results. Lot 13, I sort of mentioned doing survey and engineering. And I also mentioned on here the grant that I talked about earlier for the irrigation pond. Also, we included an element for that community garden and irrigation well out there. So that was a joint application because it allowed you to bundle multiple projects. So we're very hopeful that we get that one. EV chargers downtown. So we got the grant for some EV chargers there that we've been preparing the design. I think we've ordered the chargers. So just waiting on, I think next year is when the construction for that will be. As well as the EV chargers at the Dendorf Park. That was the project that we were doing in conjunction with Whistler Squamish and Lilwat Nation. So the idea would be we would construct that along with the amenity building. Would be a couple of chargers out there. Permanent Farm Road East washout. So this is this event happened in 2020 in February, 2 weeks before my daughter was born. I remember this because she's now in preschool. So we're happy to finally report that that this repair has been made. This was we were working with BC Hydro on this because there was a lot of damage to hydro ducts, and in fact it's not really technically in the third quarter, but they did the paving last week. So we're just finally finishing up the ditch work in the next couple of weeks, and that project I would be glad to check that off the list. Where where were we? 1 Mile Lake fish habitat. I think I talked to that earlier in the discussion section. Wastewater treatment plant outfall mitigation measures. I don't have many updates on this, but we've been continuing to monitor that. And we are still seeing quite a bit of sediment coming down the river, and hasn't caused us any operational problems, but it's still a concern of mine that it will. So we're just continuing to monitor, and I'm discussing with some consultants about some other mitigation measures we can take. Walnut Lift Station upgrade, been quite a bit of work on this. We started the design of the lift station upgrade, and we're currently discussing with nearby developers, because obviously a lot of them will be connecting to that lift station, and just to coordinate how we can coordinate efforts, but also make sure that it's built to capacity for future developments, and possibly include contributions from these developers as well. Signal Hill sidewalk. Unfortunately, well, at the time that I wrote this report, we had not received the proposal yet from the design engineers, but we now have. So we're very excited to move forward with that. I think we're going to try and do it when school's not in, because it's obviously it's a pretty critical piece. So yeah, we're just working on the design now on that. But depending on weather, we could maybe look at March break type of thing. If not, then it would be the summer, next summer.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
The old days, we used to put some 2x4s in the ground and a couple of stakes and pour concrete. Why do we have to have it engineered for sidewalk?
Well, it's a rather complex area there. If basically there's not enough space for a sidewalk, so we would need to bring in a bit of fill, but also it would then affect the ditch, which is affecting the drainage. So we would either have to put in a curb and gutter along the highway, which would require MODI approvals, and then catch basins, which would then connect to the culverts. And so you do one thing, it affects another thing. So we are looking at simplifying the design for sure. But that would involve negotiations with the school. My thought is if we can put the sidewalks partially on school property, then it would make the design much more like what you're describing, just put in a sidewalk and not have to do all the drainage facilities work. So I'm hoping we can do that. I've reached out to the school district. I haven't, like I said, we just got the proposal, so we're sort of early on this. But yeah, it is rather complex, especially because it's a Ministry of Transportation highway. So if we can get off of that, and I think for the safety of the public as well, we always, and operationally, we always have the issue that we'll clear the sidewalks, and or there it's not a sidewalk now, but we always carve out a little lane. We clear that at 4 a.m. and then at 6 a.m. the big plow truck comes, the MODI plows come and just shovels snow over top of it. So to have that separated by potentially the ditch, which we're talking about doing the sidewalk on the other side of the ditch, then that would remove that operational challenge, as well as the safety of people walking beside the road. So that's sort of the direction we're hoping to go. And I agree with you. I'm hoping to do something a little bit more straightforward than have to put in all this drainage facilities. So
Thanks very much.
sorry for the long-winded answer.
We needed that.
Well, I can tell you that unfortunately, yeah, this is how a lot of these things go, is that, it's like, yeah, let's just do this. But then you unravel all the issues that get presented with it. So I'm sorry, I'm almost done. I promise. 1 Mile Lake trail widening. I don't have any updates on this. We submitted the environmental approvals. I think I've mentioned before to council that this was a 1 year to 12 to 18 month approval time, because they did say that it required full approvals in order to do that work. So wastewater treatment plant confined space procedures. I'm very happy to report that we completed the confined space procedures, and actually, scheduled for October. I can tell you that this isn't the third quarter, but we did also complete the basin cleaning, and it went very well. So that's something that I think you've probably seen on the budget and in previous reports. It's been since I started working here almost 4 years ago. That's been on my list. So very happy to get that approved by WorkSafe and to actually get the work done. And we're hoping to do the second basin potentially this year if the weather holds like it's been. So, finally, Fernwood water main and PRV replacement, that we're in the design stages of that as well. Had some difficulties with the existing infrastructure, knowing what is in the ground and investigating that. We've run into some snags and but I think we're getting to a point where we can start to work on that project again. Speed reader installation. I just want to mention this one because we did apply for this funding through ICBC. Unfortunately, there's now a 20-week lead time on these things. So what we decided to do was move the one that was out at Permanent Farm Road to Aspen by the school, because that was our next place to put one. Right in time for when school started, we wanted to have something there because we see a lot of people speeding now. So the idea of these things, and that was ICBC's request as well with the funding that they gave us, was that it would rotate around, that it wouldn't just benefit one neighborhood. I'm hoping to get 3 or 4 of them that we can move around, but they're known to have complacency as well, so it's good to just move them to different locations. And yeah, so that's our intention. But we have, I can't remember if we have 2 more coming or just 1 more, but I think we ordered 2. Yeah. And that's the list. As far as communications, I mean, we work with the communications department to communicate when necessary. Also, legal considerations is none for this report or impact on budget. I mean, all of this stuff has either been budgeted for in the capital projects or just in our operating budget. No other interdepartmental impacts, and no impact on the climate action plan strategies or impact on regional neighboring jurisdictions. So I would recommend that you receive this report here.
That's it. Tom, we lost a few trees on the Portage Road and a couple elsewhere from the dry weather we've had this year and stuff. Do we have a budget to replace any of that, or how do we go about that?
The short answer is no. But this would be the time to replant trees. There are grant funding opportunities like regreening through BC Hydro, although I think that we used that grant to plant those trees in the first place. So I don't know how happy they would be to, replace trees that didn't take, or I don't really have an answer for you that we didn't have a plan to do those trees this year, but it's something that we can look at, because obviously our park season is wrapping up. So
yeah,
if I do have some room in the budget, we could try.
Just to that point, the bylaw says they have to be non-fruit bearing trees.
Right.
And I think we have also a bylaw says what we can and cannot plant. If somebody donated a couple trees, would that be acceptable? Replace those trees.
I suppose that's something that we could look at. I mean, again, I'll be honest, I didn't really prepare an answer for that. So I don't know. I haven't really investigated which trees need to be replanted. I know there was a couple removed after the first season. And I think there's a few on the school that haven't been getting water. So, and those ones aren't ours, but yeah, I mean, I think that would just, we would just try and fit it into the operating budget. But of course, if someone had trees they were looking for, we're talking about actually, there's some trees out at the industrial park that unfortunately the Minister of Transportation has said we need to remove because they block sight lines, and also they're under power lines. So they're not really in a good place. So we were going to try and replant some of them along Portage. We always try, and obviously if a tree's got to come out somewhere and reuse it somewhere, it doesn't always take. And we don't have the equipment like they have certain spades that you can put on a backhoe that are meant for that. We don't have that. And they're shockingly expensive to even rent apparently, but we have successfully replanted just using our backhoe. So that's something we can look at as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm just wondering, under your minor repairs, maintenance and upgrade, will the train station be on your budget for next year?
The train station.
We're looking at painting it, doing some renovations, and not renovations, but some upgrades to the outside.
We could look at repainting the train station. Yes. I think we identified the outhouse to be priority for that. I think we painted the inside of the bathrooms in there actually this year. So I think we repainted a bunch of the bathrooms, but exterior painting we didn't get to, but we could look at that for sure. It might be something that I would contract out just because you want it done properly, but
Good. It's just looking a little bit rough, and being that we own it, we should be ahead of the game rather than picking it up. So, good, thank you.
As far as the sign at the industrial park, is that one of your projects or?
That was the chamber.
I noticed it's still looking a little shabby.
Looks a little rough.
Yeah,
The welcome to Pemberton. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
I mean, I think that there's.
bigger conversation.
Yeah, well, there's sensitivities as to the location, so I think the idea is that we open the conversation as to the right spot for that sign, and we make sure we consult again with Meewat in terms of how they would like to see that as well. So I think that's one of the reasons we haven't tackled it, is because A, there's no budget for it right now, and B, there's conversations to be had to figure out exactly where it goes, but I would agree, it is starting to look a little dusty.
are we talking about the business park sign with all the businesses, or is it welcome to
How about
town?
the welcome?
Yes.
Yeah, the welcome to Pembroke sign just at the.
Yeah.
And council may recall that you, staff were directed to prioritize the sign
Yeah,
southbound. And so we have made application for a 10-year piece to be able to move that in, and it's in the provincial loop.
Yeah.
And so that was what was prioritized.
we might want to consider taking it down if we do anything with it and yeah, we'll bookmark that.
Okay. Well, anyhow, your list is huge and thanks so much for all your work. It's really quite amazing. It's what your team's accomplished.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, agreed. Your quarterly reports are always extensive and your crew is small, so I don't know how that relates, but you get it done, and town looked great this summer. The projects you mentioned there were all key, from bike skills to the less visible ones. And I know the CEO was going to mention it a bit in her report, but the response this weekend with the water main break from your crew, outstanding. You guys are all over it. Thank you. Please pass it on.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I wish I could take all the credit, but definitely the public works crew. And our supporting staff, for sure. I'd have to credit them as well. They're doing a lot of the work, so but thank you. It's much appreciated. I will pass that on.
But yeah, it's all sincere, Tom. Like, everything you guys have done this summer is pretty amazing for the size of the crew you are. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Motion to receive, please.
I just
Got
have
it.
one comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually just wanted to say, when you mentioned the work that your crew's been doing on the 1 Mile Lake culvert and the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans, I spoke to somebody in the public this past weekend who said they've seen salmon spawning at the north end,
Mhm.
or I guess it'd be the south end of 1 Mile Lake again.
Mhm.
Just they said they haven't seen that in a while.
Mhm.
I thought, well, I guess Tom's done it again. He's done a great job. So, which is nice to see.
Yeah, that was sort of the goal, so.
More fish returning, and the work you're doing is making a huge difference in lots of different habitats. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's one personal favorite of mine, to be honest, that project. Very pleased about that, so thank you.
Motion received, second. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. You can go back to day.
Thank you. To my sick kids, actually.
Okay. Got a chance here. We're going to be going on to 12.1 in a second, which is Office of the CEO. Right, yes. Third quarter strategic priorities update.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I am here to share the third quarter report from the Office of the CAO. I'm going to cover some of the highlights from that. So in the area of emergency services, I just want to recognize the exercise that was done as a joint emergency operations center activation with the SLRD and the District of Squamish. And I'll give you a little more detail on that in my verbal later. Also, the application for the grant to the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Adaptation Stream That's a mouthful. For the meter slope stabilization. Not an insignificant amount of work there being done in support of the Dyken District. In communications, we had the village-wide public art competition to source art for our hydro boxes here in the community. And that was successful. We should see those wraps taking place a little bit later with this call. We managed the official opening of the Pemberton Bike Skills Park back in July. Had an amazing turnout for that and a very successful launch. Within HR, we have the recruitment of a new bylaw enforcement animal control officer, as well as fire chief and deputy fire chief. And then as well, a compensation review project. In the Office of the Executive Assistant, we had the New Quantal Organizing Committee, which I'm sorry, I was not able to attend that, but I understand went incredibly successfully and hopefully will give way to more gatherings of that nature. We also had the arrangement of cultural safety and humility training for our staff and the Pemberton Fire Rescue staff. So. And then going to current projects related to strategic priorities. We have the Community Climate Action Plan. One of the things that is not listed on here that I would share is that we are in discussions with staff as to the creation of a greening committee, which I think makes really good sense because it allows us to impact the space in which we work and how we do business internally. Make that a priority in our operations. With regard to municipal facilities, design contract for some research on the potential of a new municipal hall, fire hall, was started in January of 2022. We're continuing to work with those consultants at this juncture. They are in the stage of preparing renderings based on program development. So understanding what the space needs might be. Under asset management, I've had the privilege of sitting in on some meetings with our asset management consultants with Thomas and Tom, and we are entering the final stages of the data plan review. With regards to the OCP update, you had a pretty comprehensive update the last we met, but that contract was awarded in June and we're looking at a launch for that project in January. The daycare expansion, we recently closed the RFP, which would have been launched in July, and we're in the process of the review of bids. With regards to improved monitoring for floods and mudslides, I just mentioned we had the grant application for the Mount Meager stabilization flow through grant with the Pemberton Valley Dyken District that was sent in for fall of 2022. And then finally, regional transit. We've had an excellent reinvigoration of this in collaboration with Squamish, the SLRD and Leewatt, and it sounds like there is some potential for some pilot projecting going forward in 2023. So I will share more about that as I have more details. I would recommend that council receive this report.
Thank you, CEO Tracy. Any questions? Received. That, Councilor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. No one favorable.
So you're in town this weekend. Just want to recognize that our team was out in big full force. First with the operations crew and the quick response to the water main break up the street here. Also corporate services at the pools and many of our team members. They're helping to initiate the democratic process and then fire with their event that was held at the barn. So I came up on Saturday and was able to check in and see all 3 things in action. And I think it was a great demonstration of the teamwork that our organization displays. I told you that I would share a little bit more detail on the joint EOC exercise. So pardon me if I read a little bit here, but I think that with regards to community safety, this is a really important event that took place here and something that we should definitely continue going forward. So on October the 5th, the village participated in a joint flood evacuation exercise in partnership with the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District and the District of Squamish. All 3 jurisdictions activated their Emergency Operations Center to collaboratively coordinate a response to a fully simulated large-scale flood response in the Pemberton and Squamish valleys. This exercise was designed to collaboratively address flood evacuation issues shared across jurisdictions and identify high demand, limited resources to be allocated and prioritized when multiple jurisdictions are affected. This exercise was funded through the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Evacuation Route Planning Funding Stream. The exercise provided the village with the opportunity to activate all positions in the EOC and have almost all departments participate. We were able to test and validate EOC resource documents, the emergency management plan, and current evacuation route plans. The exercise also provided the opportunity for staff to gain experience in their respective EOC roles. Initial feedback from staff and the facilitator conveyed that there was exceptional teamwork, communication, leadership in the EOC, and that experience provided a great opportunity for staff to feel more confident in their roles in the EOC. So you can imagine we had probably 20-some people packed in here in a completely active EOC. We had a consultant who was working around the tables, helping to advise us as we went through the process. It was a really great opportunity for me to have some perspective as to what that looks like when we all come together and we try to do this work in here. And the amount of teamwork that took place was extraordinary. I was really appreciative of the observations of the facilitator who came in and helped us with the exercise. And also really impressed with the amount of work that Sarah did to help facilitate that exercise. So in the end, we learned a few initial lessons that centered around critical improvements, which was some of our IT capabilities within this room. So Wi-Fi, phones, laptop, and GIS. It was a great opportunity to test that. The current size of this space, which definitely had some challenges, but also had some upsides to it, because the ability for us to communicate with one another, being critical during a time like that, that actually works out really well when you're close. And then for reference, sorry, there were 18 people working in here, so it wasn't quite 20. We don't really have the ability to expand that if necessary. So I think that's an important thing to note. We were pretty maxed out with everyone that was in here. Outputs from the exercise will include an after-action report identifying areas for improvement, improved public safety, and facilitate increasingly integrated evacuation planning and procedures through the development of original evacuation route plan and framework and operational evacuation plans for each jurisdiction.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Any questions? Really glad to hear about that exercise and that it went well. And you mentioned the IT, our IT had capacity. We were able to keep up with what was necessary with what we've got.
You know, I think that we were able to sort of assess what our limitations are. And I think that's the important part of going through an exercise like that, because you think about every single person, 18 people being in here with their laptops, as well as half of them with work phones, and then some of them with personal phones on top of that. So we did identify the potential need for another access point in here in order to make sure that the Wi-Fi was well covered, because we definitely did test the capacity on that. But again, good reason to do an exercise like this and actually understand how functional we are when everyone is in here working. So
Awesome. And on top of it, Sarah did it all in a walking boot because she just busted her foot a few days prior to that, so another great job by staff. Was staff doing appropriately good about their work and about the exercise? Was it?
Well, that was the nice part about having the facilitator here. This individual is expert in this arena, and not that every bit of feedback I always want to give you is glowing, but he just said, you know, for a team of our size, dealing with some of the logistical challenges of our space and things like that, that everyone just stepped up, really owned their roles, really played it. And I would say like the adrenaline in this room for the few hours that we were in here was really high. And at the moment I clapped my hands and we called it, the sense of relief was significant, but just great leadership shown all around from the team. And I know, you know, this is one of the things that keeps me up at night in terms of our preparedness for situations like this. It definitely is not.
Nice, awesome. Well, again, pass on congratulations to staff on that. That's awesome. Any questions? Did you have one?
Just one thing was specifically when you mentioned the capacity of our Wi-Fi. I was wondering about the capacity of our electrical system. Because I'm drawing on my own experience where I've seen excessive draw, and I just noticed we have a power bar here. Excessive draw on power bars has been known to cause fires in the past. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned you've got laptops, phones. I'm sure there's more electrical equipment, and maybe our fire chief can chime in if need be, but that would be, when you mentioned that many people with electrical devices in here.
Yeah,
That brought up something for me because I've seen that happen.
yeah.
And the power bar in that specific situation actually started a fire.
That's a really, really good point. Cam, could you maybe?
Like, I mean, there's lots of
There's
plugins here.
Yeah, sure. So
Oh,
newer power, usually it's older power bars that cause those
And this one.
problems, and so newer ones do have like built into them, so they will break.
Okay.
Or power breaker, if they're drawing too much power. But it overall, it obviously is often a concern when you're trying to draw too much power from sources.
Yeah.
That you have. Yeah, so newer power bars are usually pretty good. I haven't heard too much of any issues with those, but when you're drawing power from older power bars, it's certainly more of a concern than anything.
Budget for next year, new power bars.
Awesome. Motion received, please. Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, CEO Tracy. We're on to 12.3. Paid music. Ms. Fraser's going to change seats. And when we're ready, we're on to corporate services. Third quarter outstanding resolutions update.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me this morning. I am here to present the third quarter outstanding resolutions that the list of outstanding resolutions based on the end of the third quarter. These resolutions are logged, and in some cases we're able to move them forward. In other cases, we're not, depending on the situation and what if we're waiting for other agencies or entities to participate. And sometimes, just as we've seen with the operations report, things just get put on hold for other reasons that we're unable to do anything about. So there is one resolution that is on the books that is left over from the previous council with respect to boundary extension. And that will be a discussion that we are looking at doing a mini boundary extension to address some inconsistencies in our boundaries. There was a parcel of land that was left out of our last boundary extension, which needs to be brought in. And I think at that time we'll look at this option, but we do have to consider the impacts of trying to take in the independent power projects around and whether or not that would even be supported by the regional district, which is where they are located. So that is an item for a little bit more discussion. The Crown Land 10-year application for the Lillooet River park and boat launch. That is a matter that is going to be discussed between the CAOs at the SLRD and the Village of Pemberton. We have a very, very, very small tenure compared to that space. And that actual overall space, our tenure is about this big, and it was specific for industrial or utility use. And I believe that, as we've reported to council in the past, it's not as simple as just switching it over and taking in more space. And given that this area is in the regional district, it does lead to perhaps it being more suited as a regional district initiative as part of the Parks and Trails function. So those conversations have been highlighted to take place, and it's just a matter of having staff having the time to sit down and start to work through that. The BC Social Procurement Initiative is something that we have on the books that if we have time to get to it, we will. The SPCA Roadside and Protect Wildlife Domestic bylaw. We have that on our list, and hopefully at some point, once we're back up to full capacity, we can look to bring that forward. Airport, we haven't had an opportunity to have discussions around that. That will move forward. The climate protection, Partners for Climate Protection, that's been added to the work plan. The airport snow and ice removal policy has been completed. That policy was approved in October at the last meeting. So pleased to have that done. The establishment of airport lease and application fee deposit. We have to update our fees and charges bylaw, and we just haven't been able to get to that, but that'll be something we'll look at when we next bring forward an amendment. The airport lease rate review has been moved forward to the 2023 budget for consideration. Electronic meeting policy that was brought to council at a committee of the whole, and we'll bring that forward for new council. The Sea to Sky Community Services Affordable Housing Project, that is just remains on the books because we're still midway through that process. But it has the next step is it got third reading and it's going through the MOTI review process. Parental leave benefits policy, council again saw a draft, and that will come back. UNDRIP discussion, that will be something that gets brought back. Bilingual signage, the same as we move forward into 2023. And the cultural sensitivity and humility training, we are, that is on the radar and will be brought forward as funding is made available. There are grant opportunities, and so we're pleased that we had quite an extensive program training session that took place in July, and then with the fire department as well. So we're quite pleased with how successful that was. And then a roads maintenance policy will be it's part of operations for them to develop. So some of these are moving into operational and budget, and will be brought back as part of that discussions in 2023. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Much questions. Taking its pleasure, motion to receive. Suzanne, seconded by Councilor Antonelli. Opposed. Carries. On to 12.2 E, legislative services, third quarter.
So again, this is just a bit of a snapshot in time of what the administration group or corporate and legislative services in the front office have been working on. It's more around a little bit of statistics. I did add in a little section here around election, because that has been the main focus of our work since July. With the move of the election into October, that moves back all of the pre-planning activities for the election. We actually start at the end of June, beginning of July. So we held a couple of all candidate information sessions where we review the requirements set out by BC Elections and provide council a bit of an overview of what provide potential candidates an overview of what to expect as part of the election. And then, and if they get elected, sort of a highlights on what the role of council is, just to keep it so that they're familiar with what they're potentially stepping into. So one of the things that I did want to flag that, as you know, our chief election officer, Gwendolyn Kennedy, resigned to take another position in another community. And so as a result of that, in September, I was appointed the chief election officer and took over that role at the end of September to run the actual election. We do coordinate with the school district. The school district, as you're aware, had an acclamation. Only one candidate put their name forward, and as such, they were acclaimed. We do have some cost sharing agreement with the school district around the advertising and some of the pre-planning work. So that helps to support our budget. And we also cost share with the regional district on the room rental and the food service that's provided to staff during advanced voting. We held 3 advanced voting opportunities. This is the first time that we went outside of our regular 2. And certainly one of the lessons that we learned, which will be presented at the election report as well. But for the sake of those council members who are leaving us, I would say that moving the advanced voting to the community center is well worth the cost. We had a significant attendance rate for advanced voting voters, more than we've ever had when we've held advanced voting here in this facility. So going forward, my recommendation certainly will be to ensure that all advanced voting opportunities are held at the community center. It did make a huge difference. We still only had a 1/3 turnout, but given the population increase, the 1/3 turnout put the actual number of people that turned out higher than what we've had in the past. So we didn't hit the goal of 1,000 voters, which had been my hope, but
Right in line with the provincial average, so.
yeah, and yes, yeah. I was hoping for a few more because based on the fact that we had such an increase in population over a 4-year, 5-year period. But having said that, I think the election team will take it. And I did want to acknowledge Elena and Renee for their hard work. First time into an election, mail ballots, all the challenges that we were faced with some of that activity. So,
And then I don't want to risk getting too deep into this part because you are going to do a report, but mail-in ballots, did we have a number?
we had 15.
15.
Unfortunately, we distributed 15. No, we had 15 actual mail ballots received. We distributed 25, 20, somewhere around there. But unfortunately, some people did not get their packages back in time. It's a challenge if somebody's asking with 2 days to go.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do.
I think people aren't used to it either. They'll get used to the system and the process a little bit more.
Yeah, it is a bit cumbersome. You've got to make application, you have to sign documentation, then it gets sent to you, then, really you need to turn it around and send it back right away. We had one person advise that they never received ballots, but we're short 2 ballots, so they must have received them and we don't know.
The other quick comment again, without going too far, but the one comment I heard from a number of people was, and I know it's maybe tough to do, and it might not cross Thanksgiving next week, but there were a lot of people in town, young people that live here or whatever, that maybe Thanksgiving advance voting might have been something else. So just put it in your notes
Yeah.
for next year, but that was.
Yeah, no,
A lot of 20-some-year-olds that said, oh, I thought I'd be able to vote when we
Yeah.
came back.
and that is something that it's always, Thanksgiving traditionally is a family weekend, and that's a hard one to, but we do have the ability, if it's an extra advanced voting opportunity, to just make it for a short period of time. It can be, what we did on October 1st, which was 8 hours. So that's definitely something that we're going to look at. They do have the opportunity to do mail ballots, but again, it was so new, people didn't really know what the process was. So hopefully with a little bit more education, we'll be able to move that forward. And then some of the other administrative activities, we've are listed out here with respect to FOIs. We've had none in the second quarter. Business licenses, we traditionally start to reduce down, or sorry, in the third quarter, that should be the third quarter. We traditionally reduce the number of business licenses that we see issued out in the third quarter. And council may recall that we have adjusted so that as of October 1st, the business license fees do get reduced for the last quarter of the year. Most of those that were received are a non-resident. So they're contractors that are coming into town working on a specific project. And they're not necessarily new businesses that are opening. But generally speaking, our business numbers, as you can see, our business license numbers are, despite the pandemic and everything, continue to increase over that period of time, which is kind of interesting. It could be that our people are operating at home businesses like accounting, little bookkeeping, or making adjustments, but it's good. We did want to flag the short-term vacation rental. I know that there's often a lot of discussion around that, and just to let council know that we have had, based on the cap, we have 22 licenses available. We've issued 20, and we do have some neighborhoods that where the cap has been is maxed out. So we have a wait list. We haven't seen a lot of activity and requests for short-term vacation rentals over the last 2 years because of the pandemic. People were not willing to open up their homes and have people coming and going. But that said, I would have to say that since June, we've had a number of requests and interest in finding out about it, particularly as new homes are coming online with suites. People want to rent the suites out for short-term rental as opposed to long-term. So we are seeing, and council did receive a letter to that effect at a previous meeting earlier this year. So we are seeing some of that movement back to a sharing economy. And it may be something that new council would want to revisit at some point. We do monitor, and I also want to make the point that a lot of people will say that there's all these Airbnb listings, and when you actually start to narrow it down to what is in the village, Pemberton, it's not 165 or 200 or 1,000, whatever. It's actually quite a small number. We do try to reach out and find those people who don't have business licenses to let them know. We are aware of a couple right now that we're, once I have a little more resources, we'll be able to follow up because we're challenged right now. Dog licenses are the same as business licenses. We tend to see more at the beginning of the year, and then it ramps off. But now that we have bylaw enforcement out there, Lisa Rettenwiger, our new bylaw enforcement officer, is doing a great job of really being out there, talking to people, letting people know about the need for business dog tags and the value of having one. If your dog goes on walkabout, we can find you and get you guys back together again. And she's had some really positive feedback. So hopefully she'll be attending the PAWS event in November, and hopefully we'll sell a whole lot. That'll be good. Film permits are reduced, water permits reduced over the last year, backyard hen keeping permits. We've had actually people tell us that they're no longer interested. It does bring with it its own challenges, such as vermin and bears. And I think that when people are faced with that challenge, often they'll make the decision to change their course. And bylaw enforcement, as you know, we've been very limited on that activity. And as such, there isn't anything too significant to report. But now that we have bylaw enforcement back in place and on a full time, we'll probably see some of those numbers go back. Our focus is always education first, warnings first. And if we're, starts to get challenging, then tickets. And customer service requests, again, the breakdown, we're sort of trending where we were last year. And I'm expecting that we'll see a little bit less. Than not quite the 294, because certainly for 2020 and 2021, a lot of the issues that we were receiving complaints about were related to the pandemic and public health orders. So that is my report.
Very much. Any questions? Moved by Councillor Zan, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Any discussion? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. President. Okay, we're on to 12.2C. Just making sure who's got a chance to move in here. Trying to pace myself. Ms. President, 12.2C.
Thank you for having me again. So this is a request for Community Enhancement Fund to support the Pemberton and District Museum and Archive Society Pemberton Haunted Museum of Horrors Halloween event that's going to be taking place on October 29th. They're reinvigorating their whole Halloween activities. They're taking a bit more of a larger approach to it rather than just a one-day event or an afternoon event. It's going to be over 3 days. And the idea is to try to get people back into the museum and visiting and checking it out, but while having a whole lot of fun and dressing up and participating in some fun events and activities. They are doing a bit of a fundraising campaign where they're seeking support from local businesses and other organizations. And they approached the village and would like to have a contribution of $500 towards the coordination and organization of the event. And so under our Community Enhancement Fund, council will recall that we did make a contribution to the Christmas Bureau and the Food Bank Christmas program at the last meeting. That left $1,750 in the community enhancement pot. So if council were to support a $500 contribution, there's still some funds left in $1,250 left in the pot for anything that might come forward in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Any questions? Would you like to make a motion? That's Caddick. Move the $500 contribution.
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Councillor Zan. Discussion. It's just throwing money around at the end of the term, eh?
Get rid of it.
Any opposed, motion carries. We'll sit down over here now.
Thank you.
We're on 12.3A, 2021 Statement of Financial Information. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you very much for having me. The purpose of today's report is to provide council the 2021 Statement of Financial Information for review and approval. So per the Financial Information Act, the local government is required to prepare a statement of financial information to be filed with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing following receipt of the audited financial statements. We had the pleasure of MNP presenting the audited financial statements this morning. And along with those, I've prepared this schedule of payments to suppliers of goods and services, which was a list of suppliers over $25,000 in 2021 spend, along with a statement of remuneration and expenses, amounts paid to council members, along with employees earning over $75,000. So with all of that considered, my recommendation is that council approves the 2021 Statement of Financial Information for filing with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing under the Financial Information Act. But I'd like to welcome the floor for any questions or exploration of any of those statements if anyone has those questions.
Questions? Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, if you don't mind, please, on page 102 under the COVID restart funds. Yeah, page 102 on our agenda.
I just need a little bit of help from Elena here in getting to the correct.
It's in the audited financial statements.
15 of mine.
Yeah.
Got a few different statements here.
It's part of the audited financial statements.
Thank you. Yes.
The question I have is, we've had those restart funds for some time now. Is there a time frame that those have to be used or money returned, or is that going to be able to go into general revenue at some point?
It would not go to general revenue. We have followed up and we are able to continue to use those funds over the next few years. I think what we'll see at the next budget cycle here is a recommendation for a number of projects. There's a dedicated project listing for this year. For example, there are projects to restore some of the IT services and meet the requirements of, in consequence of COVID-19, as you'll recall from our budget review earlier this year. But yeah, we have confirmed, and there is not an expiry for those.
Okay, and some of that money then can be used for new iPads for the new council as they come in.
That would be a separate fund, but for staff, as an example, something of a similar nature would qualify under those terms.
Very much, it's just a substantial amount of money still in the fund. I don't want the government to take it back if we have some use for it that applies to restart.
Yeah, no, certainly, and we are continuing to see some of those implications of the pandemic, and as I said, plans in place, and we'll have another follow-up at this upcoming budget session too.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
We hid it under the mattress so the province can't find it.
Well, I know when the mattress are getting thin, so we're going to, thank you very much.
Any questions? Somebody like to make the motion as presented? Zan, seconded by Mr. Antonelli. Any discussion? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. We're on to development services. I see the way the development service guy just kind of jumped the line on you guys. Mr. McGregor.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me today. So I'm here today to present a quick snapshot on the activities of the Development Services Department in the third quarter. So you'll notice I've made a few changes to the report format in the last quarter. They're just the numbers we're reporting. You'll continue to see some of those changes over time. The goal here is just to give council a better understanding of the flow of permits through the department. So the big changes, the one I'd like to highlight, I guess, is the total active permits in the department. So at 222, so that's the number of files that are open and could be someone inquiring about it any given day. We've also started tracking the number of requests to view files. So that's someone coming in to look at their property file. That represents a fair amount of staff time as well. So someone's going to be going up into the attic depending on the vintage of those files. So just to help everyone understand kind of the activities of the department better. So in the third quarter, we received 17 building permits applications in full, and 34 permits were issued. We collected about $43,000 in permit fees on about $5 million in construction value. You'll notice the application numbers were a bit down from this period last year, but they're pretty much on par with 2019 and 2018. On the current planning side, the biggest milestone I would say was the OR 136, the Sea to Sky Community Services Affordable Housing Project had a public hearing on September 27th. The team has been busy with clearing out and closing the files on some smaller DPs and minor DPs. And then the other big current planning project, the Benchlands, has been progressing in the background. The water and sanitary modeling efforts are continuing, but no real substantive reporting is going to be available till January on that. So it's coming. Same with the sub-area plan. A draft sub-area plan is prepared and is going to go for staff referrals in the fourth quarter. On the long range planning side, the OCP update is the big one there. So council may recall the draft of the communications and engagement strategy and the work plan were prepared and reviewed. And so the big milestone there will be the launch of the engagement activities in January. And so staff and the consultants are going to be busy and preparing for that in the meantime. The DCC project bylaw, or the DCC update, is in progress. We've finalized the project list, and so we've sent off ISL to work on cost estimates for the projects. Hoping to have that in the next month. The subdivision development control bylaw is in progress as well. We had a workshop with our consulting team to sort of work out some of the answers to the big questions on that in terms of road cross sections, where we want to draw the bar going forward. No real updates on the community climate action plan tracking in this quarter, but I will say that staff are hoping to have capacity later this year and early next year to start making steady progress on those actions. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Crab.
Yeah, thanks very much. On page 106, Mr. McCray, under provisional occupancy, there's 10.
Mhm.
What allows a person to go in before final occupancy permit, and how long have they got from their access until it has to be complete?
Yeah, a good question. So for provisional occupancy, that would be granting occupancy on condition that you would complete some minor deficiencies. So for example, I think, you know, one of them is like a handrail on a slightly raised deck, something like that. So basically the building official has come by, completed the inspection and said, this is going to be acceptable for you to occupy in the near term, but we obviously want you to finish this deficiency by a certain timeline. So usually that timeline is about 1 year. So the person would have 1 year to complete those deficiencies, but is essentially permitted to occupy in that time.
Then the question I would have, does that include siding on the side of a house not completed? And I see there's one in the Glen that people are living in, but there's partial siding on the building, on a new building. Is that?
I'd have to look at the particular details of that file.
I just noticed there's a few around town that it seems not just minor issues, and I could be wrong, and I don't know if they're living permanently in there, but you just look and think, gee, it doesn't even have this done or that done. So anyway,
That's likely that something like that would not have provisional occupancy. They would only be for minor deficiencies. Again, it wouldn't be for major considerations.
okay, just wanted to clear that up in my mind. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions?
Move to receive.
Motion received, Councilor Craddock, seconded by Councilor Noble. Any discussion? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Let's get back to 12.6, recreation services third quarter. Ms. Burns. Should be waiting.
It's my pleasure to wait. Good morning. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. I think recreation highlights are a lot simpler than every other department because really it was all about just receiving people. So the third quarter of 2022 was the first quarter we have had since I began in my role in spring of 2020 that we didn't have any public health orders in place. So it meant a pretty big shift from a staffing perspective. So, and we started to see people returning to the facility quite significantly. So we saw steady increases in pass sales. We saw approximately 2,200 more visits to the fitness center alone this summer. Our programs were full with wait lists. The only thing holding us back from moving forward more is acquiring more staff. So I think that's pretty much the main highlight of our summer. We saw huge increases in requests for uses of outdoor space. Indoor space was as busy as it typically is. And then I think, you know, Tom mentioned Denduff Park and the lighting that came on board. And so we're tweaking that and working with that. And I think Pemberton Youth Soccer has had a fabulous fall season. So that's been great. We've seen Lillooet Nation utilize that space regularly all summer long as well. And then I think, you know, facility wise, we were able to tick off a few boxes. So the accessibility project, we saw the doors on the south end of the facility modified to be accessible. We added accessible doors to the library. We modified I guess it's the emergency door for the library, but it's also their access point should the facility not be open, so that it's, I don't know, I really like color. So if anyone's been in the facility, you'll also notice that the hallway was painted. So we took advantage of the colors in the facility and we used a library color for the library side of the facility and a community center color just for the base in the hallway, just because white is a very hard color to maintain in a public facility, especially at that level. So we also use that color to highlight the doors of the library inside and outside. So we're kind of branding it a little bit differently so that it has its own unique identity. So pretty proud of that. Super minor modification, but I think it's made the librarian very happy. So she's in a good place as well. And then I think the big one on everyone's radar would be the basketball court. So I think kudos really to Graham Murphy of Murphy Construction. He ran with this one literally right off the bat, and I can't appreciate his efforts and his energy into this project enough. We've had some supply chain issues, obviously. That's why there's no basketball nets at the moment. However, I do anticipate arrival of those this week. So I will definitely let CAO Tracy know upon arrival, and we will move forward from there. Signage is complete and we're just working towards getting that put up. The school is very pleased as well. So we're quite pleased. I'm actually flabbergasted that we pulled this off in July and August when the project really didn't get started until the second week of June. So Mr. Murphy definitely pulled some strings for sure from an asphalt and fencing perspective. Site prep was significantly more than we had anticipated. So we go from there, but I think those are pretty much, I guess the only other highlight of the third quarter started on July 1st with Celebrate Community on Canada Day. Staff really knocked that one out of the park, I think, based on the fact that as well, we had about a month to prep and prepare that event. We were really pleased with the turnout. Unfortunately, I was like, everybody needs to do a count every hour, how many people in each space, but we were so busy that we didn't get a count. But in the grand scheme of it, I think there were probably close to about 500 people there. A few highlights were having Sergeant Poppers, someone from up the meadows brought their puppies. I think was a very unexpected highlight, but a very welcome attraction for all of the children. So that was pretty fun, as well as everything else that event entailed. So we received a lot of positive feedback, adding the cultural craft activities was received extremely well and very full. And we're really grateful for William Ritchie for coming from the Lillooet Cultural Center to facilitate those activities, as well as Maxine Bruce for providing a blessing and a welcome song, and Mayor and Councillor Jan Kennett from the SLRD Area C. And all intents and purposes, we had a fabulous summer. And I think the one of the biggest things from a staffing perspective is that all of the full-time staff had an opportunity to take a bit of a break and come back rejuvenated and ready for fall, which we're still waiting to hit. So we're anticipating seeing more numbers and potentially some more customer service requests, just because the facility is full during the hours in which everyone wants to access it. So it's really hard to make space when there's not a lot of space. At this time, I'd like to welcome any questions if there are any. Otherwise, if you would like to receive this report, that would be wonderful.
Vice Parents, along those lines, I guess I'm sure your staff are looking ahead to when the French school moves out and what opportunities that might create for programming in space.
100%.
And forward to hearing about that. Any questions? Let's go.
Yeah, just wondering, is there any more accessible projects that have to be done on that end? I thought there was going to be some concrete work. What's in the line for that?
Yeah, so we engaged Tom Barrett to develop a plan for creating an accessible access at that side of the facility. The bill for that came in double what we had left in the budget. However, that budget falls to the library's budget. There is no timeline on that spend. So we're sitting on about $75,000. And she and I have collaborated on a couple of grant applications that she has applied for to supplement the difference in that project. But yes, we anticipate potential development on that side of the facility to create a more accessible access, specifically for the whole building. And hopefully a more welcoming entrance as well that will hopefully have some shade features and some public sitting and things like that as well. But that sits with the library, and we will continue to collaborate for sure.
Thank you very much.
So two things. One, I wanted to say thank you for adjusting the lead time for the spray park. That was a big help for a lot of the kids.
Yeah.
And then one thing I wanted to touch on here is you mentioned the free solar analysis for solar array panels.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate that a little bit for me? 'Cause
It's super interesting. So we're still in the process because obviously that will mean some budgetary requests on our end as well to supplement. And right now we looked at all of PDCC as a potential solar panels on the roof. At this point in time, what makes more sense is looking at the rec building. And currently, we're still waiting for the assessment. We just had to gather some numbers and things from usage and wattage and things like that in order to look at that. But should we move forward with something like that, the guess is that we would be able to supplement 100% of our power use of the rec as well as the spray park in the summer times within 2 to 5 years, should we move forward with something like that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we're dabbling in a whole bunch of little things. And I think, I've been learning from my colleagues that potentially I should include some different topics in my reports to council, other than just the people factors. But we have lots of little things on the go all the time.
I look forward to hearing that. So
Yeah.
look forward to seeing that in the future.
Yeah, hopefully, for sure. I think it would be fabulous. So it's pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Just a few questions and comments. Gates Lake Park had a lot of use this summer, which is great. But one of the things I noticed was some locals and some people from out of town get to the beach and don't understand that it's like a shared beach and kind of camp out there and say, well, it's kind of full. And other people have difficulty accessing because you know how small that area is.
I do.
And so I think there is room for everybody. It just has to operate in a certain fashion. Like people have to lounge on the lawn and swim at the beach. And I think some signage would really help there.
Okay.
Yeah, because I saw some kids unable to access the beach because there's big
parties.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And then the other thing I hear about all the time is when the rain comes, again, the little kids are going to be looking for indoor places to run around. And so they're looking forward to using the Great Hall and having the toys out. So I'm wondering what your plan is there.
From a programming perspective, we've reviewed that. Monday through Friday, the Great Hall is booked from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. At this time. So there's potential to potentially open it up on weekends. We just are trying to mobilize staffing capabilities. I think that particular program, what we have done this fall is we have partnered with Sea to Sky Community Services for a parent and taught drop-in program, similar to what has been offered in Whistler in the past, which has basically 6 months to 4-year-olds are welcome. And we're doing that 1 day a week at this point in time. But we did take a look at all of the programming that is offered for that 0 to 5 age range in the community to make sure that we weren't doubling down on activities that were offered at the same time. So the goal being, that there is currently something every day, Monday through Friday in the community between the hours of 9 a.m. and noon for that age group. So what we want to do is support our community partners in their areas of programming. So the one way we also did that was we also expanded gymnastics time in the Great Hall. So they currently start right after school on Tuesdays, and then they're leaving a full setups right through until Thursday at about noon. And that is so that they could offer, they could satisfy their wait lists, because they have massive wait lists for all age groups in all areas of programming, specifically recreation oriented. So they have a full complement of programming also on Wednesday and Thursday mornings as well. Sea to Skies today. And then there's also Strong Start in the community as well. So we're just trying to navigate what that looks like. The only other component to the open gym program is there were definitely some liability issues with the way that program operated in the past. So moving forward, it would be something that we would have to look at staffing. And then on top of all of that, one of the fallouts of COVID is sanitization. So the sanitization aspect of that is also pretty significant from a time, like a staff time perspective. It's just an expectation from a programming perspective that those things are occurring. So we are still looking to expand and develop, obviously, but one day at a time.
Thank you. No more questions? Motion received, Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Burns.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure serving you. So thank you for your time serving the community. Have a good day.
Thanks, Missy. And 12.7. Hey, you saved the best for last. Mike, take that one. Come on. We got a few here for us. Are we starting? It's not. Starting with the third quarter report, and that's not in my notes.
Third quarter report.
Yeah, so third quarter report first up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, presenting my third quarter report. So if we start at the comparison, so the call volume for this quarter is up from last quarter. And the rest of these graphs here are obviously just in comparison for day to day and week to week. Average number of firefighters attending incidences last quarter was actually down from the quarter before. I feel that this is largely due to how busy our volunteer members are at their own jobs. So everyone's seems to be extra busy at jobs and unable to leave jobs or working largely overtime. Also, I think feeling that some people are starting to take advantage of being able to go away on vacation. So we're down. I'd like to see that up higher than it is. You'll see that our actual numbers per incident, the averages are down below standard still. So that's why I would like to see that come up. Types of responses have largely remained the same percentage wise from the last quarter, as well with the incidences by area. We'll move over to memberships. Currently we stand at 30 members at the time of this report. So that's including obviously our 2 full-time and 28 volunteers. And then we also hold our 2 Fire Smart coordinator and labor. Effective September 5th, I became the full-time chief for the Village of Pemberton. And we, at the time of the report, we hadn't filled the deputy chief position, but we actually did fill that position yesterday with Adam Elvis. Was his first day as deputy chief. We also are just about to complete our recruitment for a paid on call, and I didn't have numbers at the time of the report, but we are bringing on 10 more members. So that will bump our volunteers back up to approximately 38, which is a sweet spot, right?
40 is what I want. 40 is what I have room for, and that's maxing out our space. And then that we have found in the past when we've been at that number has brought up those call volumes, the response membership up to appropriate levels. In the third quarter, some training, 764.5 hours of training was done. Public events, the recorded hours is 70, but that's actually just outside of regular working hours. We've done some in our public events, bringing the kindergarten classes and the daycare centers up to the hall and things like that. Those hours haven't been recorded on this. I think I plan to actually record those for that last quarter. And then incidences, hours, 811 hours. All those are up from last quarter. Capital projects, the perimeter fencing at the training ground was completed and it's on budget. It's actually, it's pretty nice to see there. It's a nice, big, larger fence and gate. We had issues with people going in and taking things from vehicles that were in there. If anybody's been by the training grounds, we'll also see that it has been cleaned up quite a bit. We had close to 35 vehicles in there. We were unable to have anybody removed strictly because of the cost of scrap metal at the time. So that's been cleaned up. So looking more presentable for sure. Our FireSmart, the 2021 FireSmart grant concluded on July 14th. And that was the first year of that grant. During that grant, over 50 homes were assessed. They worked with the Bluffs, and the Bluffs became Pemberton's first FireSmart Canada recognized neighborhood. They actually were able to, through mitigation projects, they hauled over 13,000 pounds of vegetative debris to Sea to Sky Soils. They also were delivered some public education through FireSmart to the school, over 250 children, kindergarten to grade 7. And they were participating in monthly regional community FireSmart resiliency committee. And looking forward to their next grant, they assessed 11 critical infrastructure sites. Into our second term with that grant, some of the highlights were they were able to secure some money for training. So they sent 8 members to the Wildfire Symposium in Penticton to be trained for Engine Boss. That's a course that's just going to help people manage for WUI situations, wildfire urban interface situations. They also in development of a new community wildfire resiliency plan had CWRP with BA Blackwell, and that draft should be ready for presentation in January. Also obviously ongoing home assessments, and they submitted another neighborhood recognition program or recognition for Tayetta and waiting for approval. And then as far as training as well, those members were able to be trained in wildfire mitigation specialists. So a step up above where they were before. And that concludes my 3/4 report.
Thank you, Fire Chief Adams. Any question? Go ahead, Councilor Craddock.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chief. On page 130, under medical aid, it's 38%. Is that First responders, or is that something that the service should be taking on more of that?
No, that medical aid is first responder. So again, we have stuck with our what we find to be minimum to respond to medical aids. So anything that's in a life-threatening situation is what we continue to respond to. And that largely depends on how the call comes in and how it's communicated to ECOM, how they will recognize the coding for that medical aid call.
So when that coding comes in, obviously they send some stuff to yourself and some to the ambulance service, or does it go to both at the same time?
It goes to both at the same time. Most calls will come through the ambulance service. So if you call 911, they'll ask, please fire our ambulance. And if it's medical situation, the caller will ask for ambulance. Ambulance will create a call, and then it sends over to ECOM, and then ECOM vets it, and then they will call. So if it reaches our criteria.
Thank you for the explanation.
Any questions?
Move the report.
Motion received, Councilor Craddock, seconded by Councilor Antonelli. Any discussion? And opposed? Carries.
Congratulations to the deputy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll pass that on.
Still up with the fire chief. We're on to grant application. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here to ask for approval of a grant application. This grant is presented by UBCM. It is a community emergency preparedness fund for volunteer and composite fire departments, which is equipment and training grant funding opportunity. I am looking to retrofit one of our current apparatus that we're having constant issues with for the pump. So we've declared that we have bypassed the pump currently. So it's a CAFS system, which is compressed air foam system. So we just pump straight out of the water now because it's been every few times a year it's in need of repair, and that cost has just been too much to keep it operable. So this grant would retrofit a tank and pump into that apparatus, and that the cost of that is under the grant funding. So it's a total of $30,000 for the grant. That's it, I think.
Any questions, or would somebody like to move the motion? Councilor Noble, second by Councilor Zant. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. You've got another one for us? Training? Oh, no, that's on there. Okay, that's all in there. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon. Take care. We're on a 13.
So we'll set 11:08 recess. All right, we get to recess for just a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we're soon gonna go from this beautiful weather to 2 days of rain and then snow.
What the forecast is? Well, that's what you're saying.
Someone posted that forecast.
I haven't seen that. I'm supposed to be good. I think more days. It's gonna get cooler for sure. Today was thick frost when I got up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for that, Sean?
Those rains starting Friday. Snow starting next Tuesday.
13. Sorry, we're on 13 bylaws. We have none. Brings us to 14 mayor's report. Did I tell you guys about the follow-up email I got from the staff that I met at UBCM with regards to flood mitigation? That I did tell you, folks, that we got a meeting for January.
Mhm.
Okay. Then my only thing, my mayor's report is to thank the four of you for the last 4 years. Grateful for the time we had to work together. I think we're a good example of 5 very different individuals that came together. And I think we came together in a really productive way. I think we need to look back at pandemic and everything else that we went through together, and I'm really pleased with the work that we all did for the last 4 years. So thanks to all of you, and the 3 of you that aren't coming back. Good luck and thanks again. That's it for my mayor's report. Thank you. Any council reports? That's no.
I attended the signing ceremony up at the outdoor school, which was a really cool thing to get to witness. And yeah, it was beautiful, as well attended. And it's really exciting, the plans Little Lot has moving forward with the land. And hats off to the school district for being true leaders in truth and reconciliation, but there comes from providing the spaces and education in the school to reconciliation, giving the land back is pretty amazing. And I have to give a shout out to the library too for Truth and Reconciliation Week for giving away copies of a book, which is a great place for people to start their learning, 21 things you may not know about the Indian Act. And they had a whole bunch of free copies to give out for a week. And yeah, it's been quite an interesting 4 years. And I agree, I think we're quite a diverse bunch of characters. And I think we got along pretty well considering. And well, we've all got the common thread of having the community's interests at heart, regardless of our similarities or differences. And I think that was really important. And I'd like to congratulate the new council and incumbent mayor and council moving forward. And I attended the all candidates meeting. And it was really good to see all the people attend, whether it was virtually or in person, to get a sense of all these new people. And I got a sense that the community is going to be in good hands. And I'd also like to thank the ones who didn't get elected for putting themselves forward and showing up. And yeah, that's it.
Attended 2 meetings, Tours in Pemberton. I'll keep both very short. Tours in Pemberton is moving forward. They've got a busy agenda. They have a really strong financial statement at the present time, receiving another $285,000 to complement the work they've already done in putting composting facilities out in different areas of the community and up in the hills and stuff. So they've really done well. They're looking for a new executive assistant as Carly is stepping back from her role. And that's going to be a big job to fill. She's incredible at what she does. And I think it's going to be a real challenge to fill that out. So, and it was the first meeting we had in person, and we had it out at the Blackcomb Aviation. So it was nice to actually sit in person because, like we've mentioned, even with council, 4 years with 2 years basically on Zoom, it's been a real challenge. I've never seen that kind of effort put in by councilors before, and I think you should be complimented for that. The other meeting I attended was the Spelcoomton Community Forest, our partnership with Little Nation. It was really to finalize the 2021 financial statement, what you saw this morning. That has produced $245,000 for the village of Pemberton and the same for Little Wet Nation. And accordingly, I think when we look at the year end for this year, it's going to be substantially more. So in the requirements of the provincial government, what that money can go to, I would think that next year when the new directors take place and one councillor from each area is put on there, hopefully that will be on their agenda to set up how those funds could be dispersed. I could be well looking at $500,000 next year available. So that's huge. And I think that partnership has brought a really good connection between the two and gone a long ways to make things work really well in the community. So And again, to you, Mayor, congratulations. I look forward to working with you again for another 4 years. You've been a great leader in the community, and I'm glad that you're continuing in your role. And to everyone here, like we said, we're diverse and we've had some issues that we've dealt with well. We work together really well, and I appreciate what I've learned from each and every one of you. And I'm going to take a lot of that forward, going forward, and a big thank you from me, because it's not an easy position to take on. It's 4 years of life that when you look at where your kids have gone from when you joined us to the age group they're now and how that changed, it's a big commitment. And I hope the new people have that in mind when they come to the table. So my thanks to each and every one of you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Just building on what you said about the tourism Pemberton and their outhouses. I was up at Semaphore Lake and I saw them and it looks great. And you could just imagine how essential they were because of the number of people that are going up there. But the other thing I wanted to point out was that along the road, there are so many cars. I didn't count a lot. But up in the meadows, the area actually absorbs them quite well. And I found like the impact was pretty minimal. Like, you know, there's where the outhouses are and the campsites are and where people are congregating. But other than that, it felt like a great wilderness area.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I was pleased to see that. The other thing I wanted to say was congratulations to you two, but also the 3 women who were voted in. I'm so pleased. I believe this will be the first female majority for Pemberton, and it's kind of astounding that that's 2022. But yeah, so pleased to see that. And yeah, I think families will be well represented, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys do.
Thank you.
I attended the Peace game from last week. It was a pretty light agenda. There were 2 things that I wanted to note. One, there was a motion put on the floor to have Ms. Burns look into the community school agreement that village and the district have with District 48. This was just based on the idea to see what exactly their commitments are to the community as being what I've always heard is that it's a community school, and to enter into that discussion just to see what exactly their what they need to provide the community, because as it's been known, there's a kitchen within Signal Hill which doesn't seem to get a lot of use, and the gym, and there's also a locker or a closet there to store community sporting goods. I know the karate club has their stuff there. Pemberton Soccer has some things there, so there's that conversation there. Ms. Burns is going to look at that agreement and see what we can pull out of it. And then the second bit of information was November 2nd, the transfer station is technically 11 a.m. So that will be open for use to the public. I still have a library board meeting on Thursday, which we'll be attending. And from there, I'll send off my notes to Mayor and Council Craddock, and somebody can report in on it. As this is the last, probably the last meeting, and I won't say too much except just to say thank you to everybody sitting at this table, staff that are still here, staff that are new here, see, and past staff. There's so many names I'd love to mention, but this would get really long-winded. 2 that come to mind was Miss Lena Martin, who is our chief financial officer. I know 10 times more than I ever did about financials because of her. And then also a big thanks to Mrs. Gilmore. She was I enjoyed working with her. And I think she was a big heart to this community and to the village. In saying that, though, I am looking so forward to seeing Miss Tracy grow into this role, and I feel that you're a good fit here. So thank you for stepping up, and thank you. So, congratulations to Mayor Richmond and Council Craddock. I appreciate that you guys ran again, and I'm just happy to see you both win your seats. Congratulations to Miss Ramsden, Miss Nightingale, and Miss Helmer. I look forward to seeing what they have to say for this coming council next 4 years. And thank you to all of you. I've learned a lot from everyone here. And I appreciate your support and everything that I've learned, I'll take away and carry on. So
That's it.
thank you very much.
We have no correspondence, no late business, notice of motion. Come on, let's give us one notice of motion, you know. Question period, and do we have anybody? So I will look for a motion to go back in camera, please. Scottick, second by Councillor Antonelli. Any opposed? Take 2 seconds and reset. We're in camera.
Resuming.
So we're back in the open, and I'll look to the 2 highest bidders to adjourn their last meeting. Who wants it? Councillor Sant, seconded by Councillor Antonelli.
I hate is that, I love it.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great.
Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, fun.